Hey friends, kind of a gray morning today. Beautiful lake though. It's amazing. It always feels like the land and the lake are meditating when they're like this. Something showed up yesterday, and then it sort of was affirmed or reinforced by a couple of interactions over the course of the day, and I thought to myself, okay, this is something that's trying to come through, because I was having this feeling. I think I mentioned, if you didn't catch my post yesterday my wife Kate took off. She's going to be gone about a week. I'm up here with Annalise on my own now. Also, my brother and his wife, they just left for a few days. They'll be back soon. But it felt like a bit of an exodus from this vacation bubble that we've been in. I go back to work this week, although really kind of only part-time. But so what showed up around that was this very understandable, very kind of ho-hum feeling of, oh, there's never enough time. I wish we had more time. How often have we said, I wish we had more time? But then pretty much immediately, my voice, some higher consciousness in myself was like, really? Not enough time? Enough time for what? And it reminded me, it sort of brought to a focal point an awareness of something that David Data talks about in terms of masculine and feminine relationships. You know, David Data is somebody, he worked with Adi Da, who's a pretty spectacular spiritual teacher, who also taught, or who also was an influence on one of my favorite philosophers, Ken Wilber, and a number of other people. So, in other words, David Data has a real background in oneness, in meditation, in stillness, in I think ultimately in an enlightened perspective, which understands that that anytime we're operating within the realm of duality, within the realm of time and space, which is inherently a realm of duality, we're going to be chasing oneness through experience. We're going to be chasing, we're going to be and now this is something that I think we can alleviate our fixation or our illusion that oneness could ever be attained through a relationship, through an accomplishment, through a certain kind of shared understanding, a really great conversation, or whatever. We can alleviate the idea for ourselves that that's going to give us the experience of oneness. But the fact is, as long as we're operating in this realm, that's still going to, on some level, be motivating us. That is actually going to drive our behavior. I think even if we are enlightened, there's still a sense of wanting to unite, wanting to bring duality into an ever greater inclusiveness, an ever greater enclosure of inclusion. Because that's kind of what it means for consciousness to expand. Our awareness is able to throw a net around a greater and greater portion of the universe. It'll still be a tiny little infinitesimal fragment of the universe, no matter how large it gets. I talked about this yesterday. The perspective, the cosmos in which we sit is so ridiculously vast that the notion we're gonna somehow achieve oneness through our experience, if you put that in context, put that supposition or that notion into the context of the universe, we can see how absurd that is, how completely just impossible that notion is. But the fact is, that's what consciousness does. That's what we do. I mean, and by that I mean we attempt to synthesize and bring together into. I read a book. I wish I could remember the philosopher's name. He wrote a book called Closure, and he basically talks about. He's not a real. It wasn't a real like spiritual, nature of consciousness type philosopher. He's a little more nuts and bolts. I can almost come up with his name, but he wrote a book called Closure, and it talks about how the mind throws. It binds things together into what he calls closures, and that's how we create meaning. That's how we create hierarchy. That's how we create knowledge. That's how we trap bits of experience together, and including thought, and turn it into meaningful, turn it into meaning, basically. So that's just what we do by being here. And in some ways, I think that's the work of being human. To gradually expand the nature of human awareness, probably infinitely, for as long as we can be a species existing in the cosmos. Maybe we will be superseded by another species at some point that just has a far greater capacity for consciousness, and we won't be necessary anymore. I don't know. But so in other words, to take this back to where I was yesterday, when I had the thought, there's not enough time, I immediately caught myself and went, wait a minute. The feeling of not enough time means I'm looking for something in time. And it wasn't like I wanted to do this specific thing that needed this much time and I ran out of time to do it. That wasn't the experience I was having. That would be like just literally not enough time for something, right? That's possible. But what I'm talking about is that just the feeling there's never enough time, or there wasn't enough time in a kind of ineffable, indefinable way. Not enough time to be with these people as deeply as I would have wanted to, or something. But even that level of specificity kind of wasn't there. And it made me think, so when I caught it, it made me think, well, sure there is. The fact that there's not enough time that there's never enough time almost by definition means that there's always enough time. Because satisfaction is not going to happen in time in that way. And the universe does kind of know how much of what we need. It sort of has that covered. So my own immediate, or sort of like my present moment personality based assessment is always being led somewhere larger by forces I can't see, by influences that I may or may not even be aware of. So, and time, I have it on that level, I'm being served perfectly by time all the time. There's always enough time. There's always the exact right amount of time. But it takes my willingness to surrender to that, and my willingness to, perhaps delve into oneness simply as oneness, to stay with the awareness of this present moment, which is always one. If I can stay there, then the events that occur in time, the experiences I have, the longings I have, the desires, the fulfilled desires, the unfulfilled desires, none of those things can cut me that deeply if I'm resting in oneness. If the center of my kind of gravity is in a place of oneness, it means I can still play that game, and I can still play it full out, the game of life. I can still invest myself in it. I can still reach. I can still let my reach exceed my grasp. I can still try to throw my awareness around as much of the universe as I can. But I won't be doing it from the illusion that I'm somehow going to get there, or that there's an experience out there that I just haven't had yet that will be final. Because that's a recipe for frustration. Why would you want to live? It's almost like, a lab rat in an experiment or something, where the scientists know that the rat's never going to get what it wants, but the rat doesn't know that. Why would we want to live our life that way? If we actually can, if we have the wisdom to know that we're not going to attain oneness through experience, through the accumulation of experience, maybe we can reevaluate and live experience for a different purpose, not in an endless and sort of ultimately doomed pursuit of oneness. So a lot grew from one little seed of thought yesterday. But again, I feel like it's relevant, and it's teaching me something kind of key as I'm up here listening to, listening to life, listening to the lake. And letting myself feel into my own next steps. So, that's what I got today, folks. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.